name's John Boutte. I co-chair the Southwest Common Council, and Eleanor will introduce herself.
Secretary or scribe, Eleanor Coleman. I also work with Catholic Family Center's Youth Build Program and Rotary Southwest. Hit it.
I'm Brian Filipiak. I'm a fourth-year student at the University of Rochester, and I'm presenting tonight on an idea that I'd like some feedback on.
Great.
Rob Gulick, I'm a guest, and I'm involved with vacuum oil. The vacuum oil site. I represent one of the owners.
Oh, okay. Speak up, please, because we got some white noise here that's something fierce.
Sorry, I'm Ryan Acuff with the City-wide Tenants Union in Rochester.
And Elizabeth McGriff from the City-wide Tenants Union. Elizabeth.
Okay.
And camera.
Camera, yes.
I'm Victoria Simmons, and I'm just a long time affiliate.
Yes.
Lori Frankunas, I'm the branch manager here at Phillips Wheatley.
Okay, great. First on our agenda, we have Brian Filipiak, who's going to be presenting. Okay, Brian.
Okay, so once again, my name is Brian Filipiak. I'm a senior at the University of Rochester. I study environmental science. And today, I'm going to be talking about a project I've been working on for a number of years now through John DeMont, who some of you may know, who works in the Southwest area. And he and I are working on a project together to work on the redevelopment of 937 Genesee Street, which is an area of interest because it was part of the Brooks Landing Urban Renewal Project and kind of stands as one of the last pieces to not be fully redeveloped. So I'll go through a little bit about the site, a little bit about what the idea of an outreach center is, and then talk about why I'm here, which is getting feedback for this idea because it is fully invested in what the community wants. And so the question is, does the community even want this idea? So tonight, let's get feedback both on this idea and what the space would look like. So just a quick brief about a little bit more about me. So the university runs it's a certificate program now actually in community engaged learning. And so I take classes as well as do a community engaged project with a community partner, which my partner is 19th Ward Community Association and John DeMont is my supervisor. And so him, along with Rick Rinsky, works in the city of Rochester, who I've been working with now for 2.5 years. We've been working on trying to figure out what can we do with 937 Genesee Street. And so in working with that, I came up with this idea, and so we're kind of to see what people think about it, and if it's something that we should be pursuing. So this is 937 Genesee Street. You've probably driven by it. It just kind of looks empty. Sometimes there are cars parked there. It's right next to the Southwest Side Neighborhood Service Center over at Brooks and Genesee. And here's a little bit broader view. So right here, footbridge to the University of Rochester. If you come back from the airport down Brooks Avenue, it's right there. It's kind of a nice empty lot that has some art in front of it, but not really. It's really used for just parking right now. And so the goal is to develop it into something viable, anything that would go on that space, because right now we don't want it to just be empty. It was a part of the urban renewal district when they redid that Brooks Landing area where they built the State Bridge and they built the U of R apartment building now. All that was redone, and this site was cleaned up. For a Brownfield site, it used to be a cleaners, and they cleaned it up, and now it's clean. The city owns it, and it's basically good to go to be developed. And so the question is, what can we do with it? And so it's a 1/4 acre lot, so it's a nice sized lot. It has a 4,000. It could hold this 4,000 square foot building easily. And so the question is, what could we put into that space? And so I came up with this idea one day when we were sitting there about doing an outreach center. And so an outreach center it's not a community center. It's something very different. An outreach center is looking at how can you build and develop partnerships between different people. So whether it's different people in the community, whether it's students in the community, whether it's the university in the community. Basically, whoever wants to try to do something, how can we improve that and help make that viable for them? And so it's about building relationships and being able to improve people's lives by giving them extra resources. And to do that, I looked at some other examples across the country to kind of figure out how can we do this? Like, what would this look like? And so I'm going to talk about 2 examples, one from Minneapolis and one from Pittsburgh. And so They both focus on what the needs of the community are. I'll go into a little bit of the specifics of each in a second. But they both focus on, they're based on the idea of what does our community around us need and want. And that's where all the ideas come from. And from there, they look to develop these issues and help address the problems that they may face. So the Urban Research and Outreach Center is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's connected to the University of Minnesota system. Northwest Minneapolis, where the building is located, is the highest concentration of African Americans in the state of Minnesota. It's one of the highest areas for also disparities in the state of Minnesota for both housing as well as economic opportunities. And so the center came out of some problems between the University of Minnesota and the community. And so it's been redeveloped. They spent 2.5 years developing what would be good to have in this space. And so it's turned into a space now that has a technology center, a computer lab. They have meeting rooms that community groups use, from anything from an AA meeting to city planning projects. And just they have partnerships based on the University of Minnesota and the community, so they connect students with community groups and professors with community groups to help them benefit and to help promote their message. Right now in 2019, they bring in 22,000 people a month to come into the center to go to different events, go to different meetings, to come use the computer labs that are free. And it's a place for people on the northwest side of Minneapolis to come in and feel very comfortable in their space and be able to have potentially difficult conversations, which they've talked about is one of their big things, is creating that space that everybody feels fair and welcome. The community engagement centers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, connected to the University of Pittsburgh system, have 2 centers in different neighborhoods. They have neighborhood advisory councils specific to each center to focus on what are the needs in our area of the city. And so both of them actually focus a lot on the Pittsburgh City School District and after school programming, and they have computer labs where they teach kids like how to program and stuff that might interest kids going on to high school and into college. And so there's a lot of different programming at each of these centers focused on the needs of the community at large. So Minneapolis has a large refugee population. They do refugee programming through this center that both professors at the university work at, as well as students, as well as community members. And so it's a great gathering space to have. So these ideas kind of gave me the idea like this could work. And so the layout, I can't tell you what it would look like. I can give you some ideas of what would be in it. But what really it would look like is what is dependent on what the community of Rochester, and particularly the southwest side of the city where it's going to be located, or could be located, would want. And so we're going to have a welcome desk and hospitality area. Minnesota one has free coffee and tea and snacks for people that come in that need it. Anybody can come in. There's office space at Minnesota. They have staff there to help maintain the building, also schedule events. There'd be the office space, meeting rooms, computer labs. There could be basically anything. It's a very workable and flexible space to have flexible meeting rooms.
Who funds this?
I'll get there, I promise. And so services and programming is really community dependent. And so there are lots of different people that can use this space. So from a university perspective, any of the local universities in Rochester, the University of Rochester closest, but any of them could use the space for student organizations, holding events. If they're graduate schools, so like the University of Rochester has a business school, if their business school wants to do an entrepreneurship workshop or a small business workshop, they can hold that in this space. And so there's lots of different small level events that they can do. The community can use this space not only as a space to gather and have events and celebrations, but also as a place to improve what they have. And if, let's say, you have a grassroots organization that has a need for, we really would like to get a website up that we don't have right now. We just have Facebook. We like a website. Maybe there's a student at the university that could help them do that and help them teach them how to build one and how to maintain it. And so there are opportunities to make those connections and help to increase the number of resources available to different people. And lastly, we talked about the different ideas, and one was brought up last week when I presented to a different group at the Quadrant meeting, was having an incubator space for people to build ideas, and whether it's entrepreneurship or grassroots organizations, connecting groups that are doing similar ideas but might be in different parts of the city that have one challenge that they dealt with last week that the other group's facing now, can offer them support. And so there's spaces to grow and learn and help unify people behind what they believe. So pausing real quick to talk about who would fund this, that is the question at this point. It could be a local developer who really likes the idea, and there are possibilities to build this multiple stories, whether you want apartments up on a second floor to bring in income. There are opportunities to reduce the cost through green building and tax credits because it's Brownfield site. these two examples I provided are university backed. So the university helped pay for it, but the university doesn't actually help run the center. They're separate employees. All the people that they have in space are local. They have local companies do the cleaning and the lawn care and the snow removal. So it's all, both these centers are very locally focused in their communities and say, okay, we want this to be about the community, not about a university. We want it to be about the community. And that's the important thing. And so just to kind of bring it back, why it matters, it helps build and develop these meaningful partnerships that, you know, we want to help each other out. That's the best thing about having a community around us, is helping each other. And so uniting people in their passions and these beneficial partnerships, and increase the resources for people, because that is something that people have great ideas, but if they don't have the resources behind those ideas, they can't achieve them sometimes. So helping build capacity for people to achieve their ideas and help really develop something that, like a community, if they say, oh, I have this idea, the community could help them form that idea. So with that, I'm going to stop. If I have some time for questions, we can do questions. I have a quick survey. It's like 5 questions or 6 questions. And basically, I just ask you a couple questions about the space, but also about what the needs of the community you think are needs in your community. And so whether that be, we like to see more adult education classes or whatever it is. That's kind of what this is for. So you don't have to fill it out if you don't want to, but I'll pass it around. And if you need pens, I have pens. But that's it. So I can take questions if we have time. I don't know if we do, but if not, thank you for listening, and I appreciate being able to present tonight.
Okay, we have time.
You have time? Okay. Take 1 or 2 about anything.
Oh, well, a question I have, it's going to be a funding question.
Okay.
So, I just don't know where the money would come from. I mean, I don't know who would do what part of it if it was approved by whomever.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, because I don't know what the city's feeling is. The city probably owns that land now, right?
Yes.
And so if it's independent, if it's not for profit, then there's not going to be any taxes,
Right.
no tax revenue. So those kinds of things make me wonder, how is it going to be funded and sustained?
So the examples here. Like I said, the examples here are backed by the university. So the university helped fund. So the Minnesota site, they had an old strip mall that actually was one of the centers of crime and drug use in Northwest Minneapolis. They rehabbed this whole little like strip mall center and redesigned it into the space today that brings in 22,000 people a month. That's what they did, and so they helped back that. In our case here, there are things. So the city owns the property, and there are indications that you don't have to pay the full value if you have a great idea. And so there's that. That's an option. There are tax credits because it was a cleanup site. There are state of New York credits that could give you like money back towards building or redeveloping. Same thing for it being in the urban renewal district. The goal is to promote economic growth, and so by building this space, we create jobs that for people in the local community. We create all these jobs, both in construction but actually in the space. And so there's credits. There's money there for that. There's also money if you look at building it with green materials and giving back. So there are options. The question is, like we said, who would fund it? Like who would pay? Like who wants to build a building, basically?
Right.
And whether that's the university supporting it initially because they want to commit to that, especially because they just had a new president come in. If that's part of that where they want to go, and I can speak to some of that they have. They got a new certification this year for community engagement, and so I know they're looking to build on that. And they actually have some new committees that I actually present to you next week on that. So I know they are trending that direction. I don't know. That's the question, is they haven't seen this yet. So so I don't even know if they'd be interested. But it also comes back to a local developer who thinks, okay, if I do 1 floor of this space, have space 1 floor, I can do 2 stories of apartments above it, and I can generate revenue from those 2 while still charging rent for the bottom space, or not, but might not be your full loan. Like I'm going to charge you, what the rent should be. It might be a cut deal because you are a nonprofit, and I can do that. And there are opportunities for the space both the 2 spaces I've been talking about have rent spaces back out to people for minimal amounts. So they might charge you, $10 an hour if you want to run a meeting or something like that. It depends on the space, but there are options to create revenue from the building as well, not just have a space.
So, you listed a bunch of services and programs, and I know for us, both libraries, Arnett and Phyllis Wheatley, already provide a lot of this.
Right.
And I guess I would like, instead of creating another whole entity, I'd like to see us strengthen something that's already here,
Okay.
that's already attracting people.
Right.
And I worry about the U of R's enormous footprint in the
Yeah.
community versus trying to build. I mean, here they bring a lot of programming in here
Okay.
that is available to everybody
Right.
pretty much for free.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, and the other thing is the track record of our community-run initiatives is not great.
Okay.
When you look at the brew, brew coffee is not doing well, and that they took it over because the community had such a big no, we have to have a coffee shop. We have to have a coffee shop. It failed in the first place. It got moved across the street, and it's not doing well now. So why would
Why would we
this?
do another one?
Yeah, and if we need the U of R to do it, I don't know. Then is it really community driven?
Right. Well, and so that is the question. You know, does it fit what we need? And I know I listed some things on there. I'm not saying that would have to be in there. Like there could be things that if we think, you know, we need. Like a suggestion last week was a local gym membership where you pay $20 for a whole year and you could space and it would teach you how to, you know, work out without using weights. They have a center like that in Toronto Community College. That was an idea. So the question is like, is something that like, are there those ideas that I didn't list are on there? And talking about how could it succeed, the question is there a need for it even? So like we were talking about, the libraries do a great job of bringing people together and providing those services. So does that mean this space maybe doesn't need to do that, but needs to help groups like redirect people to the library because they offer these classes and people don't know about them? I heard a little bit last week about maybe it's a center for getting all the resources in one place and being able to redirect people. So if somebody came in and said, oh, I want to learn more about, you know, I want to be more proficient at Microsoft Word or something like that. And the libraries offer classes, like I know that, the libraries offer classes in computers and things like that. Then that center can say, okay, well maybe you need to go to your local library because they have classes on Monday that do that. And so the question is, you know, is this idea even a good idea for the community? Well, I think it depends on what the needs are. And so the needs covered by the libraries or other local organizations we don't want to intrude on. And so if there is no need for it, that's great. And so it's just a question of what do people are looking for and what does that look like? And basically it's kind of what we're going for.
Following up on what Eleanor said, the library provides space at no cost. It sounds like what you're talking about, there is a cost. So
That's one idea. That's not like for sure. It's just one idea. Like that's how they run their centers.
So here in Rochester, I don't believe having a space for community groups to meet and charge them for it, I don't think that's going to work.
But,
Charging.
you know, we have set hours. What I see from people calling in and wanting to rent, you know, use our space is they really would like something at night, like till 9 or 10 o'clock. So that is definitely a need in the community. And a lot of people, I get people who want to run exercise classes here.
Yeah.
And, you know, do their business here, but they can't because we, you know, can't allow them to do that. So that might be.
So I know it's a balance because the goal is we don't, you know, I don't want to intrude if the center would have, we don't want to take people away from the resources that are doing well, especially the libraries do such a great job of that. So the question is, are there services that aren't being provided, like a library or like other centers across the city that are needed in the southwest side of the city, and are wanted by the people. So something like the Monroe, the MCC, I think it's like the Institute for Human Impact or something like that, where they teach people how to work out without exercise equipment. Like, how can you strengthen your body? Is that something people would want to do, or are there other things that people need that aren't already being able to be done in a space, or that needs to be done between 9 and 11 p.m.? There's flexibility to design the space around what the community wants and what the community needs.
I think incubator space, I'm not sure of the need, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I also, and I don't know about the community, I can't speak for the community at large, but I don't know of any place that does natural and or holistic kinds of things. So a space to learn about nutrition outside of the norm.
Right.
I think that there's, at least on my end, there's an interest. I mean, I just do this stuff on my own, but I think the greater community could benefit from it. If there was a place to do yoga, if there was a place to do meditation, if there was a place to, and when I say meditation, when I worked part-time for Swan, as a matter of fact, Eleanor, I did a class on meditation, and the kids, they used to say, "We're going to meditate today." I mean, they were really wanting to do it. So it's kind of like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? If there's no place to do it, then people may not know that they want to do it, that it's available. So I can see some needs for this, but I think it's going to take a lot more community involvement, a lot more conversations, because like Eleanor was saying and others, that if we're taking away from the entities that are doing some of this, I know we used to meet at the service center on a regular basis. I mean, so we kind of shift where we're going and what we're doing at these various places, right or wrong. I mean, but it would be nice, because I live very close to that area, and I walk my dog by there regularly, and it's
like the kind of last, it's like the missing piece, basically.
But what I'm also thinking is, if anything should go in there, I do believe the success of it is going to depend on the community and how it's advertised and or promoted, because every time I walk past Brew, I'm wondering, why is it closed? Why aren't there more people there? What is not working with that, so that it's not what we as a community intended it to be?
Right.
So this, to me, however long you've been working on it, has potential, but there's got to be
more conversations,
more conversation, and more of a committed buy-in to it.
Right.
For it to go forward.
Right, and so this is the second time this idea has been presented. So I've only started the process of collecting feedback and understanding, is this something we even need to do? Is there a need for it? Is it not? And so that's something I want to build off of. And so hearing this is good, because the goal is to continue to see is something we need.
Do you have a time frame you're looking at to make a decision, yay or nay? And if yay, then what would be the time frame from which you would want to go forward and have something started?
So I don't have a particular timeline. The city may or may not be issuing proposals for the site in this coming spring into the summer, where they are going to just put it out there and see if anybody has any other official ideas for it, like they're going to submit, this is what we want to do on it, without, and so I don't have a particular timeline. The goal is to see, is it even something we want to look at, go further into?
Our next question is, so you said you're a fourth year student?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in
July?
June.
July.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on getting it something where that it can be picked up on by a different student. As also that the goal would be to know by then, is it something we want to pursue or not? To maybe not have a time frame, but see, if we're getting good signs, okay, we'll work on continuing to do it. But if we're getting kind of this might not be the right idea for the space, or this might not be what we're looking for, then we might say, okay, well, maybe we need to take a step back and say, okay, what do people in our community think would be good for the space? Maybe we have to take that step back. This is just one idea that I came up with on my own, just kind of see. I've lived here now for Ford actually. I came before we started school in August. I came here in the summer before. And so I have spent summers here. And so I feel I would consider Rochester as my second home. I'm from the north side of Chicago. And so I actually picked Rochester because the 19th Ward and that area right by the schools is very similar to where I live at home. And I felt very comfortable here. And so it was one of those things that I was like, well, when I started this project, I want to make sure that what I'm doing is for the community. And so in hearing that, I was like, all right, well, I think, from initial conversations with some people, they're like, oh, this might be, I wish we had some more space to do stuff. And that's kind of where this idea came from.
Okay.
I'm just kind of talking extemporaneously. One of the things that has been an ongoing challenge between this side of the river and the other side of the river is conversations, and however the perception is, if there was something that could be done to help bridge that or heal that or have people recognize that this is not a horrible place to live. I mean,
No.
so if something like that could be incorporated into it, because there are some stigmas attached to this side of the river. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, there was a time when I walked, I think it's like down Flint Street, the bridge across down in that area, there was a sign that said, "Welcome to the 19th Ward, a horrible community," or something. And I thought, that was just so...
That's not right, yeah.
No, it's definitely not right. So just the other
Well, why is this outsider here doing something that we have people in our community that can do? And so they got, the University of Minnesota was in very deep water over it. Out of it came this center where they spent 2.5 years talking to community members saying, what do we need? What do we want? Where would this be good? They spent 2.5 years just coming up with the idea. And then it's turned into a space now that people come to have conversations about, so an example in our case would be, why are there stigmas attached to going across the river? Like, why are you our kids told that? And so the space there now is one of those spaces that you can have that conversation, and that community members feel comfortable going into that space. So for example, yeah, and so I work with community groups, like community service groups on campus. They bring kids or groups onto campus for talks or days or stuff like that. They had people that didn't want to come onto campus for something. And so this would be a space it's close to campus, so you can do something with people on campus, but it doesn't have to be on campus. It's a space for everybody, and not just you are students or you are faculty. So,
We need to move on.
if you want, my email, I will flip through my emails here. If you want to email me stuff, go right ahead. If you have more ideas or you want to talk about it further, I'd love to talk with you. And that's something that I'm working on these community engaged projects and taking the classes where I went to the city hall and worked in landlord-tenant court for 6 months. So I love to working with community members and hearing about what you guys think. And so if you have questions or want to, shoot me an email with, I think this would be a great idea, or you should talk to these people, let me know. That would be great. I'd love to hear from you. So I know we're running late. I don't want to take any more of your time. So if you have questions or anything else, I also will stay here for the rest of the meeting. So if you want to talk afterwards briefly, we can. I know.
Oh, that'd be
if I
great.
want to get out, so.
Yeah, and
Are there two L's in your name? Or sorry, your last name?
It's B-F-I-L-I. There's a bunch of I's. They're all I's.
Could you do that again?
It's BFILIPIA@u.rochester.edu.
Okay. For those of us who have older eyes.
I know. I think it's bigger for it. Didn't realize how
yeah, if you can either email us your presentation, I'll insert slides in where you're talking. We videoed it, so it'll be online for people to look at.
Yeah,
okay.
I can send you that later tonight. So that would be great, so that you can look at it further if you have more questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we had a couple of late arrivals here. If you could introduce yourself.
Alicia Ward, and I'm a 19th Ward resident as well as manager of the SUNY Attain Lab located at 485 North Clinton, the City of Rochester's newly opened arsenal.
All right. And Rodney.
And I'm Rodney Brown, owner and executive editor of Southwest Tribune newspaper, and also a resident of 19th Ward.
Very good. Okay. Now originally we were planning on having a presentation from Eric Stephan's, but he's in Florida, the poor guy, with his son for a break, so he'll come next month. But we are fortunate to have the opportunity to hear a bit about the question of the new regulations relative to tenants. We had heard from Mary a couple of months ago, and we had talked about trying to get you and her here to discuss the two sides of the issue, but she's in Florida also, I think. So we'll listen to your side, and then you can come back at some point when Mary's available and we can get into it a little deeper.
Well, thank you for inviting us, and I just want to say my name is Elizabeth McGriff, and I'm a tenant organizer with the City-wide Tenants Union. And how I got involved was my home went through foreclosure, and with the help of the community, I was able to win it back. And now I got into this work to help other people to keep their housing. So one of the things that we've been working on is getting tenant protections for tenants. We've been working with a lot of tenants in our area that are living in very bad conditions, and there's a lot of investors coming into our community, and tenants are being evicted without given a good cause for eviction. So some of the things that one of the things that we're working on is the Emergency Tenant Protection Act, which allows tenants to remain in their community and not just be pushed out. We're also working on a tenant power platform where we're building tenants, giving tenants an opportunity when the landlord doesn't keep up his property. Opportunities to purchase, because a lot of renters never have that opportunity to build investment. They rent for 30, 40 years in an apartment, living in no real investment. So giving tenants, when the landlord doesn't keep up, it's like an alternative for tenants to own the property and build equity by having a co-op involved in it. So it gives an opportunity for them to build equity.
How does that happen, as far as if a landlord isn't keeping up the property?
Well, if the landlord's not keeping up, we kind of meet with the tenants, ask them, is this something you're interested in? And we put a lot of pressure on the city of Rochester, because the city has the power to do that and put pressure on them. And with that pressure, it allows either the landlord will either want to sell it or unload it, because a lot of investors, they're just here for the money. They don't put anything into the property itself. They just want to get the benefits and not really abstracting from the community and not putting things into the community. So usually the investor will resell, then they'll sell to another investor, and a lot of the cases, the tenants don't even know who the owner is, because it's exchanged hands for so many different times. So usually when the investor just wants to get out, they'll sell. So maybe sell to another investor. So with the pressure of the city putting pressure on them, it kind of puts a hold on the property, because they can't sell it. Either they have to do the repairs, bring it up to code, or sometimes they have the idea to sell it. So we want to give tenants when the landlord wants to sell it, the first opportunity to purchase. And that's through funding through HCR that helps to make that happen. And we're going to kind of building that on our local platform and on our state platform. I'm just going to hand out some information about the tenant opportunity and about our platform. This is the tenant power. The other thing that we've been working on, and we've been going back and forth to Albany. We just won 25 protections for tenants on the state level. And we are able to do that by building our forces. And those are the new laws that, you hear a lot of landlords complaining about. One of the laws that we have to opt in to is the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. And this will allow, I'll pass that out. This is one of the laws that we won the opportunity to do it because they have these laws in New York City, but they don't have it throughout the whole state. So this gives us the opportunity to opt in to a program that keeps rent stable. A lot of tenants, like the tenants at 2017 East Main Street, the landlord, felt he could get more money for the property from renters. And basically what he did was he put dogs in the basement, gave all the tenants an eviction notice, and the tenants moved, gave them 30 days, did minor painting and reopened it up, to folks. Originally, the tenants were paying $600, and once he did his little paint job, he raised the rents to $900 a month. He gave the tenants, if they wanted to stay, the option for a greater increase. And if you're living on a month-to-month income, and your income is not at the $900 mark, basically you have to move. So, and that's been happening to a lot of tenants, like the tenants on Meg Street. The landlord just wanted to beautify, well, this is what he said, he wanted to beautify the area, but his way of beautifying the area was evicting the tenants. So, these are things that we've kind of seen in a lot of people paying money for bad stuff, they don't reinvest in the community. So that's kind of what happens when people invest. So with the ETPA, it would stabilize the rents in our community, where the landlord just can't evict a person because within this law is just cause. In order to evict somebody, it has to be for a reason. They're not paying the rent. That's a reason to evict. If they've done damage to the property, that's a reason to evict. So it kind of eliminates for the for-profit part of it for landlords. It kind of, like I said, for 217 East Main Street, you just wanted more money. So these are the laws that we've been fighting for. And I think other questions.
Okay, one question I know Mary had brought up in her presentation was the question of being able to look at the number of evictions that a tenant had, prior evictions in the process of selecting a tenant for a place, and also whether they had arrest records. What does the law say about that?
As far as
Speak up, please.
as far as doing criminal background checks, none of the new tenant protections changed anything about that. So there's nothing specific. There's no law that says a landlord can or can't take that into account. So I'm not sure what she's referring to. Is that as far as the past evictions? So it does say in the law that you can't use past landlord-tenant disputes, whether a tenant has filed a case against the landlord, or a landlord has filed a case of tenant, you can't deny someone just by that background. So there was a process where they called a blacklist, where the court system would sell tenants' background records to landlords, and then they would use that. People would take their landlord to court, and sometimes the landlord would take tenant to court, and it would be used as a way to sort of just not, rent to somebody ever again. So you can't use past landlord consents just people to say, well, I'm not gonna just rent to someone just for that.
Okay.
I have a further question regarding that. Is there a regulation about somebody who's been convicted of a crime? Because I've known of numerous people who were on parole who were not able to get. Renting property was very difficult. They'd have to have background checks and stuff. If you've been incarcerated, you don't have the best of history. So what are the regulations regarding people like that?
There's really no regulations unless it's subsidized. I mean, I think from my perspective as anything, it's the opposite. Is if you do have, if you have a past criminal history, it's more used against folks. And,
right.
So the perspective we have is everybody's got to live somewhere, right? So we say, well, someone has some sort of past history with law enforcement or justice. We don't think that should be a blanket reason to say, well, we can't. But unfortunately, there are not strong protections against that. Just to clarify what supposedly, I guess Mary was saying, is that people can't take criminal background into account, but it's not true.
They do.
They do
I mean,
all
that's
the
my
time.
point.
Yeah, no, they do all the time. So now there are cities that are passing regulations where they say specifically in different parts of the country, not New York, but that you can't use this against people's their past criminal history. But there's nothing like that in subsidized housing. There's specific regulations about not being able to rent to certain people. But right now it's pretty much the landlord has free reign over it.
Okay.
Did you just say that subsidized housing thing again?
So there are some subsidized housing where there are specific regulations where they won't rent to certain people based on certain criminal convictions, background, like it's a policy.
Right, okay.
But if it's not subsidized, there's not a policy saying that you can't or you can. It's just totally at the discretion of the landlord, and they can do background checks. The only thing the new law changed around the background checks is there's a limit to how much application fees can be, and they have to be. You have to prove if you're doing a credit check or a background check, you're just charging them for that, and not overcharging $50, $60, $100 background.
Okay.
So you can do a credit check?
Yeah.
Ryan, did you have a question there?
Ryan, me and you was working together. Me and you was working together for a while.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Been a while. And what I want to know is that what are we doing locally to counteract this?
Right.
And how can we help to help you counteract this locally?
Right.
Because I mean because those things are not in place. I remember you employing tactics that pretty much just look here. I'm going to go sit on the land and make sure nobody come, and we're not going to let anybody in no matter what.
That's what Liz did.
Right. And a lot of times it was successful.
Yes.
And I want to know what have you done since then locally to make sure that those type of things doesn't happen.
So an example would be 447 Thurston Road. So the tenants were being exploited by a horrible someone from Staten Island and Peter Hungerford. And so we supported the tenants. They organized the Tenants Association, Thurston Road Tenants Association, and they called the rent strike. And they withheld their rent, and that led to a process that the city filed a lawsuit where they forced the landlord to sell the building, and they got it rehabbed completely. They're starting to move back in this week, and then they have a rent control agreement on the building. So we think that's an example of you can have development without displacement. So the people that are living in poor conditions There's ways that buildings can be renovated without raising the rent, pushing the people out. But that's what we believe is we want revitalization without gentrification, and development without displacement, where neighborhoods are improved for the benefit of people that are living, right, first. It's the most important. And so those are the things we've been doing, and then we've been passing local laws. So we're trying to get the city to opt into the state took away, Rochester had rent control from 1943 to 1961, and the state took it away, right? On June 14th of last year, for the first time, we passed a law that took away all the restrictions. So now Rochester is the first time in 59 years to opt back into rent control. So the city on December 16th voted to do the first step, which was the vacancy study. So you have the vacancy study. If there's a vacancy rate of 5% or less, the city can opt in and have rent, eviction, and maintenance protections with buildings with 6 or more units. Right. So unfortunately, there's a restriction to it. So that's the process we started. And now one of our big things is we're trying to pass this good cause eviction protection law, which would apply to all tenants. We're say you can't evict people without a cause or for huge rent increase, right? So and if you need to raise the rent, you just have to justify it, right? You've done some major repairs, you benefit the lives of the residents, that's fine, right? But not something where, like Liz is talking about, 40% rent increases, or usually when they do the no cause evictions, they give people 30-day notices. It's tenants that have raised their voice, right? They've called code enforcement, they've enforced their legal rights. Tenants have the right to organize, they have the right to call code enforcement, they have the right to try to bring the landlords into compliance. Unfortunately, that's when they try to evict a lot of tenants. So we're trying to bring those protections into place. And then you want to talk about this event going on?
And what we have coming up on Monday is the Stabilize Rochester. It's going to be at Baber AME Church, 550 Meg Street. And you talk about getting involved. That's one way you can get involved and be a part of it. We want to change what's happening to the city, and we want community support, community voice, to hear community voice on some of the things that we're working on. And if there's something we're leaving out, we want to know that too. So we're having this meeting. It's at 6 p.m. on Monday, so if you can attend, it'd be great to see community take part in it.
Okay.
And if you know of some runners, that's the main folks we would like to come to the table to runners in your community.
Well, I would like you guys, I think I reached out to Ryan before, but I never reached out to him periodically enough. I don't think so. But I would like you to reach out to me, because I think that publicizing what is going on with this situation with renting, housing, and especially me being residents in 19th Ward, we definitely need to make that more aware to the people. I think that we can get more done politically if we make that way to the people. So I advise y'all to contact me so we can get together and put some type of advertising together, so we can make sure that people are aware. No paid advertising, but just because this is something that I feel, being a part of the 19th resident, that this is something that needs to be out there more than ever at this climate we have right now. So I look forward for you guys to contact me.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We've got a few other things on the agenda here we need to get to. I was laid up on crutches for a few days this week, and Eleanor put together the annual report review. Do you want to cover that, Eleanor? Or?
Well, on the agenda, what I did is I just went back through our minutes and made note of some of the things that we've covered at these meetings, or some progress that we've made in areas. And so they're listed on this agenda. If anybody knows of anything else, we want to put something together that gives people an idea of what we do here, and that it is still a forum, a venue for people to share concerns or highlights or opportunities And because he videotapes them all, if you miss it, you can catch it. And I do minutes for all the meetings, and they're always on location Southwest, location 19 either. They're both the same. And so you can know what's going on. I do know that some people just read the minutes. And maybe skipped discussion, election of the co-chairs.
Where is that?
Up top.
Up top. Oh, yes. Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
No.
No.
We don't have any. There's no succession plan right now. Rodney has expressed an interest, but we need to talk about how are we going to lead this group, because right now, going by the bylaws, we don't have a leader. Or
Well, you are eligible, given your presence here, the number of meetings you've attended, and all your background. In fact, this committee would have gone bye-bye many moons ago if it hadn't been for your stewardship here. But we do need to get, more people involved. So please don't hesitate to bring people to the meetings, and the requirement is that people have at least 3 of the main meetings under their belt, and possibly 3 other meetings, 6 meetings in all. So if they're attending the education committee and attending here, 3 minutes each, meetings each would do the trick. But of course, we also need people who are really involved in the community and that people are going to vote for, because we do have an election at that point. So we're kind of putting off for a month or 2 getting the election out of the way. So if you come regularly, please keep coming regularly, and we'll also have to contact some people who have come in the past and are snowbirds. We're getting more and more of this as our demographic is aging. People that head south in the winter. So, okay, round table.
yes.
All righty. Who has something that wasn't on the agenda, but they'd like to?
Rob, do you want to talk about Bob?
Yeah.
Yes,
vacuum
Mr.
oil.
Blewett.
Vacuum
talk
oil,
about?
yeah.
But I don't have much to, because I've asked for clearance from our environmental consultant today, and we're not quite prepared to get into the remediation plans, interim or otherwise at the moment. But there's some progress, and we have a couple of new tenants at 920 Exchange, and then there's 936 Exchange, which is now privately owned. Not privately owned, but Food Link Foundation, I think, is closed with a deal with some developers. And then, as you may or may not know, Tom Massachi, otherwise known as DHD, and I believe some investors are looking to do something with the other side of Flint Street. And this is all along that stretch from Church of Love down to the footbridge that goes over the Ugo. We have the woman who owns Lux in the South Wedge. She has leased space to manufacture paper straws. And there's a RIT graduate who's rented space and he's in the cabinetry business. So these are the type, and a lot of other stuff that's going on in the Food Link location, as I know. And I think they've created a number of jobs for people who were from the Southwest quadrant. But that's a big focus of ours, is we're trying to do what we can to something that we ask the tenants, potential tenants, is how many jobs do they expect to be creating there. We're not doing anything fancy with 920 Exchange. It's the only one that I can really speak to. So there won't be anything. Those buildings will not be torn down, partly because of the environmental issues. The site we have decided is best left, as they call it, capped, because we know what's under the slab of the warehouses. So that's about, for our site, which is 920 Exchange, that's about, it's about 65 to 70% capped right now, which means we have some additional work to do to take care of those, to address those concerns. I would definitely say that 5 and 15 Flint is a completely different ball of wax, because it's all exposed.
Which one is that now?
That's down, that's the bigger piece of stretch that's down at the end of Flint Street as you walk up those stairs. I've been saying where the bird building is, where that bird.
Okay, yeah.
That wall mural. From there down to the footbridge that goes to the U of R. So there's going to need to be some real creativity that goes into remediating there, not least of all because it's also a floodplain. There's some potential, 100-year flood issues. And so there's a lot of thought and activity, a lot of thought going into the things. There's some activity at the moment. I'm hoping that we can really do the right thing. Not us. I'm not a property owner, so I can only do so much in convincing the owner, the guy I'm working with, to do the right thing regarding remediation. DEC is doing its job, the city is doing its job, but there's only so much they can really press them to do, and it also depends, obviously, on ExxonMobil. So my thinking is, or part of the strategy, and I've tried to communicate this to the other owners, is if we do something special that really means a lot to the community, and there's a lot of potential to have positive impact. And so if we have a strong development program, maybe we can get ExxonMobil excited about it as a partner, as opposed to Alan Knopf, for instance, and DHD. They initially sued ExxonMobil, and the next thing you know, we were only dealing with ExxonMobil lawyers at that point, and they were really not cooperative. So with the city too, the city was nearing an agreement at that point, and so they just they just said, okay, all right, you want to go that direction, we'll do that. So we think that we can bring in ExxonMobil hopefully as a partner, and we have no reason to believe that they wouldn't be an honest partner. They have never denied that site is something that in fact, they recently celebrated the 150th anniversary of the vacuum oil site. And more specifically, the founder of vacuum oil is a guy named Hiram Everest, and he's buried in Mount Hope Cemetery, and they're very much aware of the importance of that site to the history of their company, and that was paid for by ExxonMobil corporate, and it was very professionally done. So they're not saying, hey, we didn't have anything to do with it. I do think that we can get them to really do the right thing, but it's going to require more than just sort of reaching for the low-hanging fruit, which is where we are at the moment with the developers, I think. And so I don't necessarily work for these developers. I'm hoping that we can get them to do as much as possible that's beyond their bottom line, and also trying to convince them that they can do well by doing good, as I say.
Okay.
Alicia?
The one announcement that I have is that the SUNY Attain Lab is at the newly named building of the city, which is the R Center, which has been named after Trenton and Pamela Jackson, residents of the 19th Ward. Formerly, they grew up in the Northeast Rochester, and that building is
They're
now
in the
named after
19th
them.
Ward?
Pamela Jackson, yeah, their house is in the 19th Ward. He passed away, but she lives in the 19th Ward. But the Attain Lab it's now in that building, and that building is run by the city of Rochester. So what I will be handing out is a survey about the Attain Lab, and I would ask if you, John, if you could distribute that to the members, and if everyone could help get that survey out in the community
Okay, do you have that with you, or can you
no, I don't have that
Okay,
with me,
you can
but I will send it to you and
send
ask
it
if
to
you
us
could
and
distribute.
get it
Where's
out?
the location of the R Center?
485 North Clinton. So it's the Trenton and Pamela Jackson Clinton Baden Arson.
So it's in Baden Street or in that general area where Baden Street is?
Adjacent to number 9 school.
Okay.
It's the same building, they just
Renamed it? Oh, okay. Thank you for the clarification. Trying to figure out where you
They
are.
just renamed it.
All right.
Yes, they just renamed it.
Okay. And do we have anything from the library today?
We're going to be expecting people to get a $10 gift card to either Wegmans or Walmart, and then we have other giveaways. So, spread the news.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? That do it? Okay, well, we'll call it a wrap. Thank you.